the energy of Neptune and what's going to be heightened this summer. It's something that we've talked about on like every show leading up to today. And then I feel not on this episode, but another one. I'm going to talk about a really big human design event that's going to happen in December of this year. And it's very similar to Neptune at 29 degrees in terms of there's going to be a reckoning spiritually for humanity. And this is something that's very rare and does not really happen in human design. And it's happening in December, so I feel we are going to be shielded because there's going to be a lot of illusion and fantasy mixed in with this energy, and the best thing you can do is stay present and just in the heart and not so much focused on like what's going on out there. And that's why we're kind of being sheltered, and I feel we will be maybe for the rest of the year because we're not supposed to know what's going to happen.
I mean, that's what I feel, and a lot of people have confirmed this like severing, this thing happening, you know. That's what the whole point of like the light body activation was like, we need to really anchor in up here and be completely detached from what is going on in the chaos down here, because we cannot like be so affected by it to where like we get sucked into it. And a lot of that chaos is coming, you know, and that's where we're, you know, coming up on this solstice and this full moon. It was like, you know, looking at it, I'm like, okay, this is interesting, you know, full moon on the solstice, that's interesting. And it's like, oh, okay, it's a full moon at 1 degree Capricorn. Okay, cool. But then 30 days later, it's a full moon at 29 degrees Capricorn. So like immediately, that's very rare.
That is rare.
That doesn't really happen. And we actually don't have a full moon in Cancer at all this year.
Interesting.
Right. Very interesting. So it's like this heavy, it's like a 30-day window where like for me and what I was thinking about was like it's a purging of the whole 30 degrees of the Capricorn spectrum. You know, the first full moon's at the first degree and the second one's at the last degree. So that's a purging of like Capricorn, and which is holding up the old world right now.
And you know what, Capricorn, like the main energy of Capricorn in esoteric astrology is initiation.
Yeah,
To have any Capricorn placement, and she knows. Well, I guess we both do too because our generation has what Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn. But anyways, a lot of Capricorn energy. Shout out Faith. It's your life is a constant series of initiations. Where what planets you have in Capricorn, you're constantly striving with that Capricorn energy to break out of the matrix and kind of be like it's like the sign of Jesus. In terms of like the world savior and really the Capricorn energy, because in the lower it runs the capitalistic society in the matrix. The higher is that Capricorn is actually going to be what frees us, which is passing our initiations.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense because then we're also like, it's preparing us in some way for Pluto to go back to Capricorn for the final time during election season, nonetheless. So, like, it's like a severing. It's like we are literally being, like, forced at this point to, like, disconnect from the old. Because it has to be allowed to crumble. And everyone has to go through that initiation. It was funny when I was reading the degree for this full moon on the solstice. It was like, I was, like, stuck in my
I know, I could see it. It was just, like, right there.
And the degree for that one, they probably have it on there. But it talked about, like, basically something about how you cannot have empathy for other people when you have not had their experience.
Ooh.
And I thought that was exactly mine.
That's exactly right.
I was like, oh, that's gonna hurt. Because that's what Mom and the Galactics always said, was that like humanity, a lot of them, don't know what the experience is like to go through these initiations, to be someone in the heart living amongst a planet of insanity and ego. And let's be honest, a lot of humanity has not really gone through a lot of suffering. Many have. There are definitely people that have gone through suffering, but then there's also a lot who have not. And they're living in a in a bubble of like entitlement, illusion, like they've never struggled really. Their struggles are like nothing compared to what other people in the world have experienced, or what mom experienced. So they can't have empathy because they couldn't even imagine what that would be like. And so it talked about that, and I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be like 30 days of an initiation, dude. Like, I'm a little bit spooked. And then, Hope said something yesterday that made sense where, we were talking about this Cancer season and how it's the first Cancer season without an opposition from Pluto in 15 years. So, like, essentially, we have not been able to have this, like, big emotional release because of that Pluto opposition. It's been, like, we've all just been holding it in, suppressing it at all costs, and now it's kind of, like, free to come out. And then Hope was like, yeah, it's also like this resistance to the mother, because Cancer is the mother.
And Venus is in Cancer too for the solstice and things like that. Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, that also is crazy, because that means this Cancer season, like, mom's energy can almost come through like strongly without that opposition.
Yeah, and then Venus kind of like sneaking her way into Cancer too right before, which is interesting.
Right in there.
And then you want to hear the irony of all of this is that it's in the article I'm about to share, but Venus, very divine mother, is in Cancer, lines up with all of that, and then Ceres, the asteroid of the Great Mother, guess what she's in right now? Capricorn. So mom's covering both spectrums. So pretty crazy.
This is really crazy.
I know.